All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Brotherly blog, where we will be talking today about the number one draft pick. There's a lot of talk about it now that college basketball is officially over. That's the next buzz. And I'm here today with my brother, Adam, fellow basketball enthusiast. And the big question really today as who is going to be a number one draft pick, it's really between Jahlil Okafor and Karl Anthony Towns. And when you look at both of them immediately, they're two centers, they're two big guys, they're two very physical people, but as to how they can compete in the NBA, that's what we're going to be talking about mostly. So let's just start it off with Karl Anthony Towns. Kentucky, they had a bad loss there against Wisconsin. To me, I think they got outcoached. I don't know about you, Adam.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I think.
I mean, Bo Ryan definitely showed his true colors there, and I mean, I know I wrote an article earlier on the blog about coaching comparisons, and I said it was between Bo Ryan, which is like basketball purism, against a guy who can just recruit. I actually got some flack for that because I came out and I didn't say it, but I implied a lot that John Calipari couldn't coach.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine, the huge Kentucky fan, Cody, gave you a lot of flack on Twitter, and you know, in a way, I agree with what you said. He recruits, and that is mainly what he does. I think one of the bigger things that he does finally get a lot of credit for is bringing in players with so much talent that you would think want to stand out and want to be number one on a team, but he keeps them from doing that. He keeps them out of becoming a superstar, even though they still are. He coaches that team together, and they're all stars to begin with.
Yeah, and like I mentioned that, I'm like, if anything, he knows how to bring a team together, which kind of brings me to my first point about Karl Anthony Towns, is everybody has got him at the top right now, and it's amazing that with that stacked of a team, he stands out so much in Kentucky. Like, you have Willie Cauley-Stein, the Harrison twins, and then you have Karl Anthony Towns, but he still manages to make himself known on the team that's just so they seemed unbeatable, but Bo Ryan and Frank Kaminsky found a way. And like when you first think of Karl Anthony Towns, you think of words like versatile, well-rounded, because he's a guy who can play well from the perimeter. I mean, I don't want to compare him to Jahlil yet, but I mean, he's a skinny guy, but he can still move around. He's got nice feet, he's got good ball movement. And like a big thing that stands out to me, like I said, is he stands out on that team, the Kentucky team, and then he's also carried his team in scoring in the last two games. He just kind of put the team on his back, literally. And like in the Notre Dame game, I know you were talking about, there was a stint where you were kind of just amazed by how much he took over the team.
Yeah, there were 3 straight possessions near the end of that game. He had just come off the bench. He had 3 fouls, and 3 straight possessions. It was Harrison on the perimeter, dribbles twice, feeds it to Anthony Towns, and just it was so simple for him. Granted, the post player for Notre Dame didn't have much to defend, or couldn't defend much anyway, but he made it look easy still. But you're right, with the players they have on that team, he still stood out. Willie Cauley-Stein, I thought for sure would have still stood out, being isn't he a sophomore, I think. He still should have stood out, and he did, but in his own right, he got overshadowed by Towns.
Which I think that says a lot about Towns and how he plays. He's not only big physically, but he's big, like, I don't know, like, not emotionally, but like, you see him on the court because of the things he does, like, not just because of his physical appearance.
Right.
And
he impresses you.
I mean, it's great, and he's a great center, but there are cons. And I'd say one thing is, in terms of going into the NBA, he definitely needs to be more aggressive and live more above the rim. That's just me, what I'm saying. And like, also, it's not a strong suit for Jahlil either. He has defense, and it's definitely improved, but it's not NBA status.
Yeah, I could see that. And to begin the the comparison there. Anthony Towns is definitely head above Jaleel as far as defense, but you're right. As he is skinny, even though I think he's 230, 6'11", he still is.
He's 7 foot. Actually, Jaleel is 6'11". He's 7 foot.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, either way, he's 230, and he's 7 foot. That is small. I mean, it's gonna have to happen that he gets bigger and that he gets better defensively.
And that's the same. That's the same for both of them. But before we get into like comparisons, let's talk about Jahlil Okafor. And I know you have like a lot of like you don't have many nice things to say about him. I don't think like he's never really impressed me that much. But like one thing, he's like when I think of Jahlil Okafor, I think of a strong guy. He's very wide. He has a huge presence like in the paint. And some pros about Jahlil, he's a highly offensive player, beautiful post player. A lot of people compare him to Tim Duncan, which is great. I mean, that's an awesome thing to have. He also has excellent feet, and he knows how to get the ball to the rim, which is great offensively. And like people want to compare him to Tim Duncan, but Tim Duncan can also play defense, and that's where he definitely lacks. And he also lacks in his free throws. And I noticed also in the last game in Wisconsin, he got into foul trouble really, really quick.
Mm-hmm. You didn't even.
Yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead with what you were gonna say.
Well, he said he got into foul trouble, and that his fouls or his foul shots, his free throws were huge. That is only evident that he doesn't have an outside shot. For one, that basically has to be there in the NBA. Even as a big man who only lives in the paint, you still need to have a decent jump shot. As far as his free throws go, the fact he can't hit his free throws only means it's going to take that much longer for him to develop a shot. Therefore, it just is not worth it for me to see him in the NBA. As good as he is as a post player, Tim Duncan, I think that's a good comparison. That's great for him, for sure. But Tim can defend, and he's been doing so for as many years as Jahlil's been on the earth. And
he would put that boy in his schooling seat if they were against each other. Like it's just simple as that. You compare him to Tim Duncan, but you can't say that he is Tim Duncan whatsoever. I mean, I'm getting off topic, but I'm just saying like that's a big con not to be very good at defense, and it was evident throughout the entire tournament. He just didn't. I mean, I read multiple articles where they're like, Karl Anthony Towns, he played to his strengths, and he definitely showed why he should be the #1 pick. And Jahlil Okafor went down because he did the same things that he always does. He does not play defense. He cannot protect the rim. He can get to the rim, but he cannot protect the rim, and that's even bigger than getting to the rim. You can score, but you need to defend. Especially like he's going to be going up against grown men in the NBA. Like I know John Calipari, I hate to quote John Calipari, but he said it's a man's league. And it really is. And like even with his size now, he's going to have to get bigger as well. And something that Towns has on, one of the many things that Towns has on him is an outside shot. He can shoot. Both of them have really nice hook shots, but I think like I said, Towns is like much more versatile, and he can shoot that outside perimeter shot way better than Okafor.
Yeah. And it's only going to get better for him. The one thing there is the ceiling. The ceiling on Okafor, it's like you're going to wait 3 years for him to develop defense. Is his offensive game going to be that good in the NBA that he's worth taking #1?
Yeah.
It's going to seem really easy of a decision to make when you're a team that needs a big guy that needs to stay in the post. Sure, but sooner or later it's going to become pretty apparent that he needs to develop defense, or the team is going to stay as crappy as it is to begin with. I think they said that the Knicks needed someone to sit in the post.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Towns.
Go ahead.
Towns has his defense. He's going to get better at defense. At least he's already further along than Okafor. The offense, I mean, a lot of the NBA is offense. He's going to focus on offense a lot. The fact that he has defense, that is a one-up on him, therefore making him a better first-round pick.
Yeah, and he showed that in the tournament. Like, in the tournament, he showed that his defense is getting better, and that's just something Jahlil did not. I mean, he didn't even get MOP for the final game. It was Tyus Jones, which was a fellow freshman. But you would expect somebody who's going to be a #1 draft pick, a lottery pick, someone who stands out in that final game and performs when the pressure is on. And I just don't think he did that. I think he just kind of was regular Jaleel, big presence in the paint, getting into the basket, but also getting into foul trouble. And like you were saying about the Knicks, which is kind of the next point, is like either of them can be #1 draft picks, and it's really up to the Knicks to see who's going to be that lottery pick, because they could pull a Cavaliers move back in 2013 and like get an Anthony Bennett. It could be some rando that nobody's actually really heard of. Like I had never heard of Anthony Bennett, and they're like UNLV, and I was like, I had no idea he even went there. And I don't think that worked out for him very well either. But if the Knicks want to make a crazy move, they totally can, and then just skip over these two awesome players. I mean, because Jaleel's good, and it's pretty much set in stone that he's going to go to the NBA. It's just who's going to need him the most, and it could necessarily mean that it's not the Knicks. But I mean, the Knicks are in a bad place right now. They're the absolute worst team. They're just not even great to watch. I know a lot of New York Knicks fans, and they make fun of them more than they like encourage anymore. Yeah. But that's off topic. We're gonna talk another thing we're gonna talk about is like the comparisons between the two. We got into it a little bit. Like I said earlier, they both have they have a great hook shot that we've seen multiple times, and it works, and that makes them both versatile players. And they both can get to the basket, and they both have a natural feel for the game. But another similarity that I found was that they both did not defend Frank Kaminsky very well on the perimeter, and that showed. And it kind of makes me feel like these both of these players, like 1 and 2, the #1 and the #2 draft pick, but Frank Kaminsky's not going until like the 16th round, which is kind of like, well, he kind of offensively he schooled both of them, because I mean they couldn't guard on the perimeter, and he exposed that part of their games, and it makes me feel like maybe the Knicks will go wild card and they'll get Frank Kaminsky. I don't know. What do you think?
That'd be crazy. There's also, I don't even think Cliff Alexander is in the running as a lottery pick, but I know he just declared. It could be something that he might do. I wouldn't say that's in the books either. But Frank schooling both of them goes to show where they definitely need to improve. Frank has been in college and has been able to school people with quote unquote NBA talent, but it's going to come down to who needs what, I think, more than anything. And those two, comparing them, there's a lot to like about both of them. But I think when it comes down to it, Karl-Anthony Towns having a more well-rounded game is going to develop a lot quicker. And Jahlil Okafor's inability to defend is going to come running after him soon, like really quickly in the NBA. It's going to become a problem quickly.
Yeah, and like now that I think of it, like some NBA mock drafts have D'Angelo Russell going 3rd, so it's 2 centers and then a point guard. What if the Knicks decide they want to center most of their team around a point guard rather than a center? I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's many teams that do that, but I mean, the Knicks are in a position where they could start anywhere. They're starting from the ground up because their program is absolutely plummeted. So if they wanted to, they could start it with D'Angelo Russell and get him going, or they could go Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't know, but I'm just saying that's another thing to think about as the mock draft and the actual draft comes around. But yeah, I was hoping that with Frank Kaminsky, because he showed so much and he was in the final game just as Jahlil Okafor, and if Wisconsin won, Frank Kaminsky would have been the MLP for that game for them, the most outstanding player in that championship game. It's enough said, and I'm just saying that could have boosted his his pick as well. I mean, who's to say still that he won't be a #1 draft pick? You could totally make an argument.
You could, and Frank showed so much. It's been so much lately in the NBA that how are they going to develop? And I guess for scouts out there, they're looking at Frank like, well, he's done everything he can in college. He peaked in college. It doesn't make any sense. Like, you're that good of a player in college. Why wouldn't that transfer into the NBA? all Frank needs to do is gain some friggin' weight, and he's good to go.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got all of those tools.
Yeah. I mean, like, he's not as big as both of them, honestly. But, I mean, both of them already have to, they have to hit the weight room hard. They have to be big. But the thing that Frank has on him is he almost could be a power forward in the NBA rather than a center. And I don't know. I could put... Do what?
Frank's size, I think the forward position is great for him. And the way he works the perimeter, the way he can shoot the ball, that would be, yeah, I can see that.
Okay. So, overall, who would you have as the #1 draft pick? I think it's evident, but just so our audience knows.
I think if there are two ways you could go, and it's pretty easy, it would have to be Anthony Towns is my pick for sure. It's just he's going to develop quicker. He's going to be a better player. It's going to take a year, 3 years to get to a good point, but I would pick him for a team that would need to or would be okay developing a player. Is the flip side of that is Okafor offensively is grand. Like, he's amazing. So if a team thinks they need something right now, right this year, I could definitely see Okafor going first. But I would pick Anthony Towns.
And I'm gonna have to agree with you unless the Knicks get crazy and they decide they want something else, which could very well happen. We've seen it happen before. It happened back in 2013. But I'm gonna have to agree, and I'd say Karl Anthony Towns is gonna be the #1 draft pick, only because they're both very similar. It's just that Towns already has defense that's already getting better, and Jaleel. I mean, some would argue that the NBA is not a place where defense is necessarily needed, but I would argue that defense is a big part of the NBA still, given whatever. And I think that Jahlil Okafor would be more of a project than Karl Anthony Towns. They both have a natural feel for the game, but Karl Anthony Towns just seems to have more of a knowledge than Jahlil, and he doesn't show so much that he is a freshman or a younger player. And I think that's going to show, and that's going to be really important in the NBA. So. All right, I think we actually went over time, but I mean, I think it was a good talk, and so you guys heard it here. Karl Anthony Towns is going to be the #1 draft pick, and there's hard evidence as to why. Jahlil Okafor, and honestly, the decision came down to who played better in the tournament, and Karl Anthony Towns among both of them was the one that reassured people and actually moved up and let people know that he could be the #1 draft pick, and it's because of how he played in the tournament. And yes, we have multiple workouts that are coming up. Jahlil could do something crazy for a team and in their workouts, and they could really notice something. But really, when it comes down to it, if the Knicks want to be sensible and smart, they're going to go with Karl Anthony Towns. So, all right, guys, thanks for listening. That was the Brotherly Blog. It's kind of a mouthful. Stick around. Be on the lookout for episode 2. Is going to be coming at you probably next Wednesday. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything, how we can improve it, this is our first episode. So if you guys you have anything that we can improve on, just let us know. Thanks for watching, guys. Adam, thank you for volunteering to do this as well. You had some great intel. So, all right, guys.
I'll be back.
Later, guys.